Hi everyone. Hello guys. Hi everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? Hi everyone. Hi. Hello. Good morning. Good morning Adil. Good morning Prince. Good morning Ashu. Walaikum salam Hania. Hello guys. Hi everyone. Good morning Shubham. Sharad. Good morning. Good morning. I can see people are joining, and though only 11 students as of now, so we will wait few minutes for rest of the people to join, and then we are going to start our class. Good morning Sophia. Good morning. So let me inform others as well. We have already started our session, and I'm not seeing too many people here. So let's see. Let's wait. Perfect. Great. Okay. So I guess I'm visible as well as audible, right? Good morning, Shweta. Good morning. Perfect. Great. 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 So let me start sharing my screen. Please let me know once my screen is visible. Good morning, Samita. Good morning. So is my screen visible, guys? It should be visible, I guess. I hope. Great. Okay. So please ask your friends and colleagues in the WhatsApp group to join as soon as they can. Put a message there, ask them to join since we have already started, and it will be a waste of time if we wait and waste this time. So ask them to join as soon as they can, and accordingly we will start our class. As of now, there are only 16 students in the class, which is not acceptable, of course. So please put a message from your side, each individual, and ask them to join so that we can start with our session. Let's quickly try to revise what we discussed in our previous week, in our previous class. We discussed something related to our HTML forms, and we try to understand what HTML forms are. There are few things from HTML forms which you have not discussed yet, which we will discuss in today's class, but only under one condition: once I see good number of students here. So people are joining. People are joining. I can see 22 now. Morning, morning, Ankit. Good morning. Good morning, Adarsh. Good morning. So basically, in our previous class, we discussed something related to HTML forms, and I plan to launch few assignments, but I was too busy this week, and fortunately, now I have wrapped almost everything, and now we will be focusing entirely on this batch. We'll be at least having 3 to 4 classes per week, starting this week itself, and we will be very actively launching our assignments, updating scores on the same time. Please make sure that you like this video instantly, okay? So since you are currently on this live session, so please put a like over there, okay? Perfect. Shall we start our session, guys? Though only 24 students, not acceptable. So not sure why the rest of the students are. If this keeps happening, then in that case we have to take some hard steps. I'm not sure what those are going to be, but we need to do that. So please ask your friends to join, okay? Please put a message in the WhatsApp group, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. Shall we start, guys? Shall we start? Okay, let's start our class. In our previous class, we had a very wonderful discussion on HTML forms, and we try to understand that whenever we talk about our HTML or whenever we talk about our websites, receiving input from a user plays a very important role. And in order to receive input from a user, there's one type of semantic tag that we have called as forms. And in that form, there are different types of input fields, whether we talk about type text, whether we talk about type email, type password, type number, type date, type file, type URL, type range, type reset, type color, so on and so forth, right? And all of those input types help us to define different types of inputs in our web application so that we can expect a user to give us different types of inputs according to our requirements. If I try to go live with this particular web application, okay, and let me try to copy this from another screen. This is what we have discussed in our previous class. We understood that if we want type text, we can simply like make a input field like this. For number, we can make an input field like this. For password, we can make an input field like this. We also understood type radio, type checkbox, and we understood what the difference between type radio and type checkbox is. Finally, at last, we reached to a point where our requirement was to create a drop down list. So whenever you have a drop down list requirement in our application, we understood in that particular case we have a very specific type of tag, not the input field but different type of tag called a select tag. And in this select tag, in order to give different options to our drop down menu, we can simply have options with value attribute. In our previous class, we understood very fantastically what is the essence and purpose of this value attribute. It simply signifies what should be stored in the database in terms of whenever any user tries to submit this form. Now we understood some other attributes as well, like min length, placeholder, ID, required, min, max, all of those things we try to understand properly as well. Now, if I pay my attention towards this particular selector or this particular drop down, let's try to see how this drop down looks like here. So if I go to this drop down, you can clearly understand that as a user, I will be allowed to select only one of these four options. Only one of these four options. Like I have to select either HTML, I have to select CSS, I have to select the JavaScript, I have to select React. So is there a possibility of typing my own values over here? Of course not. Select does not talk about that. You need to understand that very important point over here. When we talk about our web application, we have to understand one very important point here, which is that whenever we talk about our selected tag will give us drop down, but only we will be having option to select only one of the options that are available. I cannot type my own value over here. But guys, let's be honest over here. When you go on the internet, do you see anywhere in any web application that there is a drop down? You have options where from you can select any one of them, but you also can type your option as well. So there is a possibility of typing your own thing as well. Have you seen such kind of things? Like you go, you select a number, so you have a drop down, but you are able to type on your own as well, right? And then accordingly it might give you a suggestion from the drop down, or if it is not there, you can write your own. So how can we create such kind of drop downs where there will be bunch of options available, but also I should be able to type my own thing as well? How can we do that? Okay, that's something that we need to understand. And for that, we have one of the very important tags called as data list. Okay, so let's try to understand what the data list actually means. So let me create a data list tag like this. Now in this data list, I will simply pass my options. So let me simply go in a similar way how I passed my options to my selected tag. In a similar way, I will pass my options over here as well. Let's suppose the first value is HTML. Let's suppose I'm trying to create a label over here, which is select your sickle. So let me create a label here, and to that it will simply say select your sickle. This is what I want to create, right? And to this, I have multiple options, like suppose HTML, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. Second thing over there is CSS. Third thing over there is JavaScript. And fourth thing over there is React. Now let's try to understand what this data list attribute or data list tag actually means. So if I go to my output here, you can clearly see it says select your sickle. But after that, if you look closely over here, you cannot see any options like these. Maybe you will say, sir, in between you have not put anything that should be displayed. Let's put those as well. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and finally React. So what I have done, I have simply created a data list with four options. But guys, do you see any of them in the output? Do you see HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React being created in the output? Of course not. Let me do one thing. Let me put a break here so that this particular thing will be on a new line. So let me add a break here. So we have selected your SQL, but in front of it, there's no drop down. So what does this data list actually do? Always remember the data list that we have, this will make sense only if it is connected to an input that is a list whose we have list attribute there. So let me simply go create an input, and I will not have a type text, but I will simply create a list attribute to this. Now, let's suppose list is SKILLS. Okay, something like this. Let me create extra S because there are a lot of other things as well where I have implemented skills. Now, to connect this input field with this data list. So you can see as soon as I created this input field, I have an input field in the output. There's an input field in the output. Now, to this input field, I can type anything, whatever I want. But what's my agenda? I want to provide these options as predefined options for this input field. So you have put an attribute list skills. Now to connect this input field with this data list, you have to provide ID over here. So let me simply go provide an ID with the exact same name what over there I have connected it with the list. Now, if I have done that, let's go over here. Do you see an option now, which is an arrow? So now when I click on this arrow over there, you can clearly see there are available options now. So what's the difference between this drop down and this drop down over here? This drop down will not allow you to type anything, but this drop down that I have over here, I can select any of these predefined options, but also I can write my own skill as well. Let's suppose I want to select a skill which is not mentioned in the predefined options, but I can write such thing as well. So I can write node and it will properly work as well. So that is the difference between selected tag and a data list tag over here. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what's the difference between the selected drop down and the data list drop down? So data list makes sense only under one condition, which is if you connect it with the input tag, where list attribute and the ID attribute for these two parties are same. If you define such thing, you are clear, right? Give me a second, okay? Okay, let's come back. Now I can see only 21 students. This is the first time I'm seeing such a low number in the class. We are about to start JavaScript. If this happens, we are not going to start anything, honestly. So think about that, okay? Let people know that join. Otherwise, leave. That's it. Leave the WhatsApp group. There's no point of being in the WhatsApp group if you do not join the classes. So please make sure that you do that. Give me a second. I have a call. Let ignore it. Okay. So there are 21 students only, and that should not happen. Okay, let's ignore it. Now, guys, if you look at this input field, you can clearly see that I have a one-liner input field. I will simply write input field like this, and you can clearly see it will allow me every text, each text, but in a single line. Have you guys seen in any website where there's a multi-line input field available? Have you seen such thing that you go to a web page, there's maybe a feedback section where there's maybe multi-line input field, a bigger input field. So how do we create such input fields that allow me multi-line input? So in that case, we have one another form element called as text area. So there's one very important tag that we have called as text area. Now you can clearly see in this text area, if I start typing, it actually allows me multi-line input. So we don't have input field for these. Yes, there are two very important attributes that it can receive. Number one is calls. So I can simply write how many columns do we want. Let's suppose we want 20 columns. So it will simply increase the width over there. And let's suppose I will simply want rows. And how many rows? Let's suppose 30. So rows 30 is a very big number. Let's make it 20 this, and let's make columns 30. So if I make columns 30 and rows 20, you can clearly understand that my input field actually gets bigger in size. So how many columns you want in a single text area, how many rows you want in a single text area, it's completely up to you. So the point is that whenever you need an input field, that should allow you to insert multi-line input from the user in terms of feedback. Like you go on a website where it simply says, enter your message, enter your feedback, put some extra comments. In all those scenarios, we don't have normal input fields, a single line input field, but we have multi-line input field. So for that, we have a very important tag that's called text area. Okay, I hope that makes sense. With this, we will complete our HTML forms. We have completed our HTML forms and we will now go back to our CSS. Now, before I move forward to CSS and discuss some very important topics for today's class, give me a quick confirmation in the chat whether we understood all these things or not. Am I clear? Do we have any questions in HTML forms? Yes or no? Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Yes or no? Shall I move forward to CSS? Let's move forward to our CSS. Now, guys, there's a very important topic that we are going to discuss now. It's called pseudo classes and pseudo elements. Before we discuss our CSS transitions and animations, we need to understand text area is a spanned area. Yes, exactly. How much you want to span it, it's exactly like that, Ankit. It depends on you. Whatever you want, how much area you want for an input field, you have a text area. Now, as of now, if you ask me related to HTML forms, we have just understood how to create HTML form. Now, to deal with this HTML form, we will understand it later on, how we can deal with it. Like whatever values we type, when we click on submit, what should happen? So all those things will be taken care by later in our JavaScript part. So as of now, only the visual representation of all these elements, that's what we have discussed. And I hope all of you are quite comfortable around that. Okay. Now moving forward. As I said, we are going to start and discuss one of the very important topics inside our CSS called as pseudo elements. So let's create a file with the name of pseudo elements and pseudo classes. Or the first file is pseudo classes. What do we mean by pseudo classes first of all? It's a very specific type of a selector. Now, when we say selector, what do we mean by selector, guys? With help of which we can select an element and then implement a CSS on it. Now, if we talk about our CSS here, let's create an element and let's try to understand what we mean by pseudo classes. As of now, I will simply go create an H1 and this H1 holds a text called as Adfar Rashid. And let me go live with this particular web application. So let me open this quickly in the output and you can clearly see we have our output as Adfar Rashid over here. Wonderful. Now, in order to implement style, we will use inline CSS over there. I can use external as well. It depends on you. I want to design this H1. So I will simply go design this H1. While I will simply make the color blue and let me make a background color over there. Let's say red. Okay. And you can clearly see this is how the CSS looks in the output. Now, when we talk about our pseudo classes is that type of CSS selector that allows us to select an element in its special state. Now, what state it can be? Simply when you take cursor on it. So when I take cursor on it, my element receives attention. So in that particular case, what is the CSS that I want to implement on it? A simple question to all of you. Have you seen, guys, that when you go on a website, on buttons especially, when you take cursor on it, it actually receives a little bit focus. It implements a small change in the style. That's what I mean by pseudo classes. Now, the syntax of pseudo classes, always remember, is very simple. So what we do is we write our normal selector, like class selector, ID selector, name selector, and all of those things. Then we put colon. And in this colon, what we actually do is we simply write our pseudo class, whatever the pseudo class is. So pseudo class will be always denoted and represented. If you have to identify whether I am using a pseudo class or later on we will discuss pseudo elements, in between we write colon as a symbol. And then we simply write our style, whatever our style properties are. Let's talk about an example over there. As of now, if you look at this particular h1 tag, it's a selector, it's a name selector. Now I will put a colon around it, and after this I will simply tell it as very specific and very largely used pseudo class called as hover. Now, what does hover actually mean? Hover means when h1 will receive simply a hover pseudo class effect on it, then implement a style. Do you see this style getting implemented on this element normally? Of course not. But when I hover on it, when I take my cursor on it, at that point of time, this pseudo class gets kicked over there, triggered, and it implements my style. So when we say pseudo class is not a normal style, but pseudo class will be triggered when its special state is actually achieved. For example, h1 colon hover, and hover is the most wonderful, most implemented pseudo class inside our web applications. Now remember, I will teach you few pseudo classes related to my anchor tags. Related to h1 and all those things, in most of the cases we use hover. But let us create an anchor tag. Okay. And with this anchor tag, I will give it a href. Let's suppose href is http colon www dot http colon slash slash, right? Slash slash www dot Google, or let's say flipkart.com. So this is an anchor tag that I have in the output. And let me put a text called as Flipkart. Done. We have our anchor tag in the output. Now, when you normally go to your web page, and if there's an anchor tag, you always and always will see it below with an underline. With an underline, always, no matter what. But you want to specifically change it. Guys, let me ask a simple scenario. Maybe you might have observed it in your web applications. Let's talk about Google. You search something on Google, right? Let's suppose I will simply go here and I will simply search laptop shopping. Okay, so let me simply go search laptop shopping. Now I will simply go here and let me try to erase this. Please see, try to understand what I'm trying to say. As of now, if you see this is somehow below, right? Let me click on it. Once I click on it, it will open the website. But if I go back, do you see a style change inside this link? Now it looks like that I have already visited this link. Yes or no? There's a difference between this link and this link. It actually lets you know that you have already visited this link before, right? So how can we implement such things in our website? How can we implement such things? That's what will be done on anchor tags using my pseudo classes. The first pseudo class that we actually talk about anchor tag is link. So when we talk about link, let me simply go create color black. Let's create color black or anything. If I go to my web application, you can clearly see my Flipkart is having color black right now. So you will say, sir, does this mean it is simply a pseudo class that will be implemented on an anchor tag directly on its text, the color of it? Maybe, maybe not. We will understand that in 2 minutes. Then another pseudo class that we have is visited. So we have one very important pseudo class called as visited. In this case, I will simply make color as red. Now pay close attention here. As of now, my Flipkart is unvisited on this website. Yes or no? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? My anchor tag is right now unvisited. I created this anchor tag and I have not visited it right now. And that's what link does. Link simply means it's a pseudo class that will be implemented on anchor tag when it is unvisited. But let me visit it. So let me click on this. Once I click on it, I have simply visited. Now, if I go back, what is the color of it? What is the color of it? It's red. So link pseudo class will be implemented under one condition on my anchor tag if the link is unvisited. But once I visit it, it will simply make this particular change inside the anchor tag. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? Do you understand what the difference between link and visited? So link pseudo class will be implemented on anchor tag when my anchor tag is unvisited. I as a user have not visited it. But if I talk about pseudo class visited on an anchor tag, it means the style will now be implemented once the link is visited. I hope that makes sense. After this, on my anchor tag as well, I can simply implement one another pseudo class called as hover. Okay, now when we talk about hover is a pseudo class which will be implemented on every element. So in this case, maybe I will simply tell it color is equals to what? Color is equals to, let's suppose, blue. Now, always remember one very important point. To a text over there, any kind of text tag, whether it's anchor tag, H1 tag, H2 tag, P tag, any kind of text tag, you can put underline, you can put overline, you can put inline, between, middle line, I mean. It's completely up to you. With respect to my anchor tag, my underline is already there. Now, in order to remove an underline from any text tag, the property that we use is called text decoration. And we can simply write none over there. Now, when I write none, look at this. Now, when is this style getting implemented? When I hover on this anchor tag. So, if I hover on this anchor tag, you can clearly see now there's no underline. So if you simply want to remove an underline from an anchor tag, the property that you will use is text decoration. Even on this H1 tag, if you look at this, so let me go on H1 tag. So to this H1 tag, let's suppose I want a text decoration. I want underline. I want underline. So what can we do for that? So I will simply go write text decoration. And then I will simply tell it, I want it to be solid. Okay. Then I want it to be, let's suppose 3 pixel. Okay, and then I want it to be underlined. So simply like that. So once I do that, you can clearly see there's an underline over there. Do you want to this text tag on the top as well? So I can simply tell it overline. So I can give overline as well. So there's an overline text decoration as well. But if there's already a text decoration, if there's already a line below or above, and if you want to remove that, simply say text decoration none and it will be removed. I hope text decoration property is also clear. It works exactly like border. We have style, we have width, we have what exactly we want, style. Okay, now architect says if we refresh the page, color will still red. Yes, it will still be red because you have already visited it. You can see it's visited. So this website will remember it's visited. It will always be red because that's what the pseudo class is. Okay, I hope I have made sense what actually pseudo classes are. Now, in a similar way, if I talk about my input field, we have discussed our input field, type text. With respect to this input field, there are also some pseudo classes. Like, I will say on my input, please go and implement a pseudo class called as focus. Now, when I receive focus at that point of time, please implement background color as, let's suppose, somehow aqua. Now, what does focus pseudo class on an input field mean? Focus means always when you enter inside that input field. When my input field receives focus, I am ready to type. So if I simply click in it, you can clearly see this actually pseudo class gets kicked in. So what are pseudo classes? If I have to conclude here, pseudo classes are such kind of selectors that we can implement on our elements when a specific state for that element reaches, like hover reaches, like visited reaches, like focus reaches, like blur. Later on, we might see that as well. So these all are pseudo classes. This is one family of pseudo classes. I need a yes or no in the chat very quickly. Am I clear with pseudo classes at least until now? Yes or no? Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? Perfect. Very good. All of you, please type yes. And please make sure that you like this video right now. Okay. Moving forward, this particular set is one set of my pseudo classes. And there are a lot of pseudo classes in a similar way. You can go on the internet, you can find them. But there's one another type of pseudo class. And those pseudo class specifically select an element when a specific relationship is met. For example, I will go here and I will simply create a div with a class as main. And in this case, I will simply create p tag and this says text1, text1 p tag like this. Let me create multiple p tags in it. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. This is one of the most important things related to pseudo classes and ask it in the interviews. Okay. So let me go here. Let me simply go create 2 and then create 3. Followed by, I will simply go over and create a section inside this. And under this section, I will also create a p tag. And that p tag will be section text 1. Okay. And let me copy this, paste it. And it will be section 2. Sorry, 3. And this will be 2. So as of now, we can completely understand the relationship inside this particular div. Even let me go here and let me create a p tag here, and that p tag will simply say first tag in body. Done. P tag. So you can clearly see the output over here. Now look at this. I will go here and I will implement a pseudo class called as first child. Now what do we mean by first child here? Okay, now, first child simply means if I write my first child directly on a selector, like I am simply telling it on my p tag, if I simply go and implement a pseudo class called as first child, it simply means go to every single parent. Doesn't matter how many parents there are, and go and see if their first element is p tag, and if that is the case, target it. For example, I will go over and I will implement background color as red because red is more visible and you can clearly see that this p tag got styled, this p tag got styled, this p tag got styled. Now, can you guys tell me why all of these p tags got styled? Because you need to understand what this pseudo class actually means. It means inside the whole web document, wherever p tag is first child, in that particular case, style it. Now, can we all agree to one point, which is that this p tag is a first child of body? Yes, it is. So that's why it's getting styled. This p tag is first child of my div. Yes, it is. That's why it got styled. And in a similar way over there, can we all agree that this p tag is also first child of some parent, which is section in this case? That's why it is styled. So first child simply means on whatever selector you implemented, if it is a first child of any parent, implement it. That's what pseudo class first child means. Now, moving forward, I will go here and I will simply tell it div. Now, when I put a div in front of it, what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Now, I have changed it as selector now. So, div space p colon first child. And you can clearly understand that this tag is getting styled, this tag is getting styled. Now, how is that? Can anyone answer me that in the chat? Can anyone give me a proper answer with respect to that? Like how this is getting implemented there? Anyone? Anyone quickly? Quickly. How this text one p tag and section text one is getting styled? Because we need to understand one very important point over there, that right now I am using a pseudo class but with a combination of a combinator, and that is a descendant selector. Descendant selector. Yes or no? So you can understand that I am telling a div descendant selector. Now, when I say descendant, what does a descendant mean? Inside this particular div, check all those p's. Doesn't matter whether it's in the first hierarchy, in the second hierarchy, in the third hierarchy, it does not matter. But select all of those p tags that are first child of descendants of div. So that's why this text p tag. Is this the first child of descendant div? Yes. Is this a first child of any parent? But that parent is descendant of div? Yes, it's a descendant of div. That's what this got styled. Now tell me one thing. Using the same selector, I want to implement only one symbol in between, but I want to select only this one, this p tag over there. So how can I, what change I need to make here? And if anyone answers me, I will give him or her 2 marks later on extra. If there are deduction, if there's a deduction of 2 marks in any assignment for that person. I want to, I don't want to change the selector, but in between I want to implement a symbol. What is that symbol? That will allow me to implement only this p tag using the same selector. That's what my question is. 2 marks. Earn 2 marks. Quickly. Sahid says greater than, okay? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? But what is the symbol for that child selector, Ankit? That's what my question is. Right? So very good. All these students, it's called greater than sign. So we have greater than symbol. Now, when I say greater than symbol, what does it mean? It means in the first hierarchy of div, see if there is any p tag. That is the first child over there. So target that. So that's what we have to implement here. I hope that makes sense. So this is what we mean by first child. Now tell me one thing. If I go over here and put a tag h1, then will this p tag be targeted? Let's go and let's write h1, and that h1 says adfar. Now you can see there's no tag inside my css or inside my output that is getting implemented while background color is red. Now why is this p tag not getting implemented? Why is that? Even let me remove this. Let me remove this div. Greater than, let me remove. Let me talk about only p tag. This is getting styled, this is getting styled, but not, why not this p tag? Why not this p tag? Because it's not the first child now, it's the second child of div. Do we all agree with that? This p tag is not the first child, it's the second child of my div. So when we implement this first child, it means it must be the first child. When a parent opens up, this element should come immediately as the first element. In that particular case, this will be implemented like it. I hope this makes sense. I hope this first child pseudo class makes sense. Okay. Moving forward, there's one another type of pseudo class which can be implemented here. So let me go here and let me write p colon first of type. So there's one very important called as first of type. Now over I will simply go make background color as below. And you can now see even for this particular element as well, it's implemented. The background color is blue. Now what's happening here? What does first of type mean? First of type mean go inside a parent, and inside the parent there can be n number of children. Now whatever, wherever this p tag its first occurrence will be, it's not necessary it will be first child, second child, third child, fourth child, but wherever its first occurrence is, target that. So this p tag over here is having the first occurrence, that's why it's getting implemented. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what is the difference between first child and first of type? First child and first of type. Am I clear with that? I hope that is clear. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat so that we can move forward and we have understood the difference between first child and first of type. Done? Everyone please reply with yes or no. Everyone must reply. Done? Perfectly fine. Moving forward, there's also one another pseudo class that we have. Similar to first child, first of type, there's one other pseudo class called as last child. Now, when we say last child, let me implement background color as, let's say background color is blue violet. So there's one element that got affected with this last child. What does last child mean? Go in any parent that you have, and see if there is any p tag that is the last child, last extreme child inside any parent. And there's only one p tag that is the last child inside this section, and it got implemented. Can I guys say that this is the last child? According to this div, what is its last child? Tell me that in the chat. According to this div, whose class is main, its last child is which element? Its last child is which element? Its last child is not this p tag, but this whole section tag over there. This whole section tag. Yes, if I go and write p tag over there that says hello. So if I say hello over there, it will get implemented. Why this blue violet got implemented? Because now this p tag is a last child of this div. If I similarly go over here, p tag says hello with a lot of O's. It will be a last child, but unfortunately, remember that this will not get implemented here. There's a reason behind this, because body ka last child implement nahi hota in most of the cases. Although it should be implemented, there's this drawback that we have, and I have seen this drawback in almost in every single case whenever I have discussed it. Okay, so this will not be implemented. But tell me one thing. Tell me one thing here. We understood what last child is. We understood what first child is. We understood what first of type is. In a similar way, there will be also a last of type. So if I simply go here and let me implement p of last of type. Now, when we say p of last of type, let me implement background color, and let's say background color is aqua. Now, why is this p tag getting implemented? Why is this p tag getting implemented? Why is there any other? No, there are these p tags that are getting implemented. Why? Why am I getting aqua over there? Last of type. What does last of type mean? In a parent, in its level, at its hierarchy, whatever the last occurrence of P is, not necessarily the last element, but last occurrence. So you can clearly see this P tag is the last occurrence of P tag inside this body. Do you see inside this body there's any another P tag? Of course not. So that's why it got selected. Then we have in this div, the last occurrence is this. In this section, the last occurrence is this. So that's what we mean by last of type. So there's a clear difference between first child, first of type, last child, or last of type. I hope that makes sense, right? Am I clear again? Now I have to discuss only one pseudo class. That is the last pseudo class. But am I clear with all of these things? I want all of the 34 students to type yes or no in the chat. All of the 34 students. Quickly. Very good. Everyone must reply. Okay. Now there's one pseudo class that is the BAP of all these pseudo classes, which you might use very often. These pseudo classes you might use, might not. Okay. Last of type, repeat. You understood what first of type mean, Ankit? Vice versa, first of type is last of type. So in this particular div, there's a last child P tag, right? But can I say this is the last of type of P tag inside this div? Yes or no? Can I say that this is the last? This is not the last child. This P tag is not last child P tag inside div, but this is last of type P tag inside div, right? So that's why it's getting implemented here. So text3 P tag. That's what last of type actually means. Okay. Now there's one pseudo class that we have that I said is father of all of these, which is nth child. So let me simply go say P tag, target all those P tag that are nth child. Now, when we say nth child, what does nth child mean? What does nth child mean? Let me write as of now. I don't want to select first. I don't want to select last. I don't want to select first of type, last of type. This specifically target a specific range only. But now I want to select a P tag. That P tag inside my web application, that's fourth child in any parent. Any parent. Fourth child. So I will simply 4. Is there a P tag that is the fourth child of any parent? So in this case, I will simply go at background color as, let's say, pink. Of course, there is no P tag. No, there is P tag, fourth child. Okay, this one. So do you see that this P tag is the fourth child of this div? Of course, yes. So H1 is first child, P, P, P. So P is the fourth child. So nth child will allow you to select any child in any parent and then implement your style on that, whatever you want. So that's what we mean by nth child. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes or no? Do you understand what nth child means? In a similar way, I can write any number over. I can write 2. So if P tag is 2, second child inside any parent, target those. I can write 9. Though there's no element that is the ninth child as of now, according to the current HTML structure, it will be implemented like that. But this syntax is not that much used. There's one another syntax that is used. Let me remove this particular section. And what I will do is I will simply go Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, and let me create a lot of elements here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and let's suppose there are these many children, and there's a possibility that there might be these children. Hundreds of possibilities when you will have a structure like this. For example, you want to design a chessboard. Now, in chessboard, how many children's parent have? 64 children, right? So there's a possibility in XYZ opportunity requirements. You can have different children structure and parent structure. And HTML CSS is always about how a person, how a developer understands child and parent relationship. If you're able to understand that and then you understand these all pseudo class and pseudo elements, you are going to be a wonderful developer. Okay. Now let's understand one thing here. I want to implement a P tag where my child is second child, and you can see second child is implemented. 3, third child will get implemented. 4, fourth child will get implemented. 5, fifth child will get implemented. So in a similar way, even let me remove this H1 now. This H1 might get you confused, but let me remove it. So you can see fifth element is removed. Now I don't want that. I want an arithmetic progression like thing. What do I mean by that? I want if my P tag is first element, targeted, third element, fifth element, seventh element. I mean in a pattern. Odd p elements target that in a parent. Even p elements target that. So in order to target those, we can pass an argument over it called as odd. Now, when I say odd, you can clearly understand this is getting implemented because it's an odd child of any parent. This is getting implemented odd child, odd child, odd child. So all of those are getting implemented. So if you want to select odd children of my parent, in that case, we can pass in nth child my odd attribute. In a similar way, if I want to target even, I can pass even as well. And you can clearly see now event elements are getting implemented. So event, even, sorry, even. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. All of those possibilities of a p tag, where they are even occurrences inside a parent, target them. So this is odd and even. But also there's one another syntax that my nth child has. That syntax is called an plus b. An plus b. What does an mean? A is a number, B is a number, and N automatically CSS it starts it as a range that starts from 0 to 1. So N will be in the first occurrence 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Let's talk about an example over here. The very fantastic syntax that you most often will see in a pseudo class is nth child an plus b, where a and n are any numbers that you put there, and n will simply range from 0 to n, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so forth. Let me talk about an example. Let's suppose I will write 2n plus 1. What does 2n plus 1 mean? 2 into 0 is 0 plus 1, so 1. 2, 1, 2 plus 1, 3. 2, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9. So all these elements, so on and so forth. So these elements will be implemented. Another example. Let's suppose an plus b. I will write 3n plus 2. So n will be given 0. Automatically the website, this HTML will give it 0. So 3 into 0 is 0. Plus 2 is 2. So the first element that will be targeted is 2. N will become 1. 3, 1, 3. Plus 2, 5. Then 3 to 6. 2, 6 to 8. Then 11. Then 14. Then 17. So on and so forth. So I am creating a progression kind of thing. So you can actually, according to your requirement, you can put some numbers over here, and whatever your requirements. Let's suppose I want to design those elements, those children in any parent that match 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16. So there's a gap of 3 in everything. So in that case, I can simply go here and I can simply implement any type of operation. Let's suppose I will write 3n plus 1. What does 3n plus 1 mean? What does 3n plus 1 mean? N will automatically become 0. So now when n is 0, so it will be 1. So one element is targeted. Let's make n 1. 3 into 1 is 3 plus 1, 4. So 4 is targeted. Then n is 2. 3, 2, 6 plus 1, 7. 7 is targeted. Then n will become 3. 3, 3, 9 plus 1 is 10. So 10 is targeted. Do you understand what an plus b syntax is? So nth child, an plus b syntax is simply, it depends on your requirements. Whatever number of a you will give, whatever number of b you will give, you just have to understand that n will simply serially automatically will start from 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4 in a proper serial manner. So you can clearly understand all those arithmetic elements are getting actually targeted in this case. So n will always go in a series starting from 0 to n. So first case 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7. And it will create a series of numbers, and whatever output it yields, those elements will be targeted. And with this, we have completed our pseudo classes as well. And there are a lot of other pseudo classes: nth last child, nth last of type, first child, last of type. All of those pseudo classes you can understand, because if you understand these things, you can make sense out of them automatically as well. Shall I move forward to pseudo elements? Shall I move forward to pseudo elements? Give me a quick confirmation quickly. Very good. Let's move forward to pseudo elements. So I will create one another file here. Okay. And let me name that file as pseudo elements. dot html. What do we mean by pseudo elements? Pseudo classes, we understood two things. Sir, where can we implement wherever you have such kind of requirements? Let me give you a simple example over here, Ankit. You go to check chessboard. You create a website chessboard. Do you see in every row there's a pattern of background color? First child has back background, second child white, third back, fourth white, fifth black, sixth white. Right? So you see a pattern over there that these children have this kind of background color. So in that case, you can implement these such nth child over there. Another example. Let's suppose you have created a website in which there's a single row, and inside that single row over there, you are trying to implement some style one after each other. And adjacent elements are having same style. Now, how can you create adjacent element? How can you target adjacent elements and implement same style on those adjacent elements? By implementing nth child. Lot of use case of nth child, lot of use cases, and you will implement them once you start building projects, very good projects around your websites. Trust me, you will have hundreds of applications around this, and we will create one project around all of these things as well. Don't worry about it. Whatever properties I have created, I have an application around it, I have a project around it, but only under one condition. If we continue this course, and we can continue this course only under one condition, when I see good number of students that are joining and remaining until end, even if they know the topic. I want dedicated students here, which I unfortunately am not feeling I'm having here. There are 20 students who are very dedicated, only 20 students, not more than that. Not more than that. Only 20 students, that's it. Okay? So think about that. Put a message in the WhatsApp group, motivate them, ask them what is the reason. I have to take some hard steps in that case. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So let me create a file with the name of pseudo elements. Now, what do we mean by pseudo elements? If we talk about pseudo classes is a type of a selector that allows me to select an element in its specific state, in its special state. Okay, and we saw hover, we saw focus, we saw link, visited, hover, right? And then we saw first child, last child, and all those things. In a similar way, there are some other pseudo elements as well. And those pseudo elements actually also talk about some special cases inside our website. Let me give a simple example. Have you guys gone to a website where there's a text, but in that text, the first letter of that paragraph is having a very different style, like very big, like the paragraph starts from the best instructor in this universe is Adfar sir, right? So they will have T very large, an extra large size, a red background, red color, which means a specific part of a tag receiving some specific attention in terms of articles, newspapers. So how can we implement that? Or some places, what you see is, you see that even a single line, the first line over there is having some unique style, right, with respect to the rest of the paragraph. How can we implement that, right? Let's understand that. So for that, we have a concept of pseudo elements. Let me create a p tag, and in this p tag I will go create a lorem 100 text, so meaning multiple paragraphs. And let me go live with this website. So if I go live, you can clearly see it's a multi-line paragraph that I have created, right? Now to this paragraph, how can we implement our pseudo element? In pseudo classes, the syntax was colon, but in pseudo elements, the syntax is double colon. So target all the p tags and then implement the first line pseudo element. First line, or let's start with first letter. So P colon colon. So if anyone asks you visually, tell me the difference between pseudo class and pseudo element selector. The visual difference is, in pseudo class we put semicolon on the, sorry, colon one, but in pseudo elements we put two colons. Now in this case, let's try to understand. I will simply take font size is 50. Now when I said font size 50 pixel, what happened? What happened over there? Font size, the first letter of this P tag got affected. And if I go here in this website and all the p tags that I will create, they will have the first letter as the 50 pixel. I can go and I can implement my color over here as well. So let's simply go and try to make the color as below, and you can clearly understand it gets implemented. This is what we mean by below. Now there's one catch here. Let's suppose I have a span tag. Okay, span tag, and to this span tag I also have lorem 100. Okay, now we can clearly see I have this span tag and this is my p tag. Now will this same style be implemented on span tag? It should be, right? Because I'm going to use a pseudo element first letter here as well. So let's use first letter here, and I will simply go implement font size 50 pixel, but you don't see a change in the output. If I go write color over there and let me make color as, let's suppose something like this. So do you see a change? Of course not. There's a catch. This first letter, or later on we will see first line pseudo element. These two pseudo elements are implemented on block level elements only. So if the text tag is a block level tag, then this pseudo element will be implemented. What is the difference between span and p, guys? Tell me that in the chat. What's the difference between span and p tag? What's the difference between span and p tag? The difference between span and p tag is very good. Span is an inline level element, p tag is a block level element. But what if I make this block level? In that case, will it be implemented? Let's see that. So I will go here and I will implement the display property and let me make it block. So I will make it block, and even after that, once it's blocked, my pseudo elements are not getting implemented. So something, although it won't be implemented like this, sorry, my mistake. I will go over here. I will target the span tag directly. Then in that case, I will make my display, and display is equal to block. So now when I make display block, now CSS is implemented. So that's the catch here. That once your element is block level element, then only first letter or first line style will be implemented. Pseudo element will be implemented. In a similar way, I will go to p tag and I will implement one another pseudo element over here called as first line. Now, what does first line over there mean? Let me make background color of this is as yellow. Now, when I make yellow, you can clearly understand all the p tags, their first line is now getting implemented as background color. So jitni bhi first line hai, all of that will be implemented. It will be made yellow over there. So I hope you have understood these two pseudo elements. But remember, first line or first line letter, both of these pseudo elements will be implemented only on block level elements, not on inline level elements. I hope that makes sense. Moving forward, there's one another pseudo element. Now, pseudo elements or any type of pseudo classes, I have seen that I have implemented on my any tag, p tag, h1 tag, div tag, I can implement on that. But I can also write directly, right? Let's suppose let me implement still on p tag. There's one other called as selection. Now, what does selection actually mean? Let me say background color as red. Now, before I go and try to make you understand what it is, let me remove it. As of now, whenever you go to any website, when I try to select the text over there, you can clearly understand as soon as I select a text, the background color becomes blue, the text color becomes white. Do you see that, guys? Do you see that? Yes or no? You can see when I highlight any text, why do we highlight it? Not to copy it. So when we highlight this text, the background color is blue, the text color becomes white. But if we want to even override that for our website, we want to change that style in this case as well. So in that case, you can clearly understand. Now, all on the p tags, I can simply actually override that. So now when I select it, the selection pseudo element will be implemented on my website. And now I can change the background color to red. Okay, in a similar way, I can go over there and I can implement the color should be in this case, let's suppose blue. So now when I make blue, background color is this, color is blue, right? So such kind of pseudo classes. But this pseudo element, sorry, pseudo element will be implemented on p tag. But let's suppose I want to implement on every tag. This p tag, this selection pseudo element is implemented on p tag only. Will it be implemented on my span? Of course not, because I have targeted specifically p tag. Now, how do I make sure it's implemented on every single tag? In that case, I can remove this p tag Now it's implemented on every wire. So now if I simply go here, this is working on every single place, every single place. So we usually write our selection in this way. In a similar way, we have one another pseudo element called as marker. Now, what does marker mean? Let's simply say color is equals to red. Let's say color is equal to red. Do you see anywhere any red thing? Of course not. This marker pseudo element will be implemented on lists. So unordered list over the list item. Let's go back and let me click enter. List item one. Okay. And then list item two. Now, if you look at the marker now, the marker is red. So if you want to implement and make a change to this marker in visual representation, this is the pseudo element that we talk about. I hope that makes sense as well. Okay. Now, moving towards the last two pseudo elements, and then we will take a break and we will start our very important discussion on transitions and animations. Now, let's suppose there are H1 tags. Okay. And this H1 tag says heading 1, or let's say heading only. Now, control C, control V, control V, control V. I have these many headings over there. And what my requirement is, to all the heading tags, I want to put an emoji in front of it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like in front of this heading, I want to put a heart emoji. Now, how can I do that? I can simply go here and I can simply create an emoji here. So let me find an emoji like this. So once I put that, you can clearly understand and see emoji in the output. But in that case, I have to go to all of the H1 tags one by one and implement a heart emoji there. But that's not what I want. I want to implement it using CSS. By simply writing a single line of code, heart emoji should be implemented anywhere, but on H1 tags or on any selector wherever you want. For that, we have a pseudo element. So I will simply do on my H1 before. So there's one very important pseudo element called as before. Now over here, I will simply write content. There's a property that will be content. And to this, I will simply implement as emoji over the heart. Now see, when I told it to every H1, add this content before every element. So in that particular case, you can see heart is added everywhere. So this is what we made before. Now it's not necessary that it will be implemented on H1. It will be implemented on anything, whatever your selector is. So now if I go to my P tags, there's a heart icon in front of every P tag. So you have lot of tags, and to those lot of tags, you want to put some same content in front of it. So in that case, we have before pseudo element. There's one another pseudo element that we have that's called after. And you clearly can make sense of after as well. So if I go to after pseudo element here, in a similar way, I will go and write content as heart. What does it mean? After this. So let me go here. Let me write H1 in this case. So H1 before, H1 after. I have my content before as well as after. So these are few of the pseudo elements that play some very important role. But you need to understand that pseudo elements are some specific part for of a tag. If we want to target the whole tag and implement style, we have to normally write our selector and that's it. Simply your start button on your keyboard with dot. So start button and dot. Press them on the same time, you will get an emoji keyboard. Okay? So start button and dot. So if you click both of them on the same time, you will get your emoji keyboard. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So these pseudo elements, as I said, it is not even pseudo classes, pseudo elements. They don't target the element specifically, but they actually try to reach that element in a very specific state. First letter, first line, marker, selection, right? First child, first of type, last child, last of type, nth child, nth of type. So all of those things. So that's what we mean by pseudo classes and pseudo elements. I need a confirmation from all the 33 students whether we understood what pseudo elements and pseudo class are. If we understood, we will take a break of 10 minutes. Am I clear? Am I clear, guys? Done? Perfect. Great. I can see few yeses in the chat. I want every one of you to type yes. So we will take a 10-minute timer. Okay. And after this 10 minutes, we are going to have a very important discussion. Do not leave the class. Even in break, stay here. Stay here, show your presence, and tell me how much dedicated you are. So stay here up till end. And also one very important point. After 10 minutes, we will discuss transitions, we will discuss animations, one of the very important topics that you can implement on your elements in a proper way. So let us take a 10 minutes of break. Exactly after 10 minutes, we are going to start our class. See you guys. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. Perfect, great. I think I am audible, right? Great. Okay, so I guess we can start. So now we have completed this pseudo class and pseudo elements discussion. We have discussed most of them. I hope that you are going to practice on your own, and I will launch some assignments related to all of those things as well. In this week, I did not launch the assignment because I was too busy. I was busy with some stuff. Now I am absolutely free for this week, and we will do a lot of stuff in this week. Okay, related to assignments and related to score updation, evaluation, all those things. Now our second half of this session has started, and we have to discuss one very important topic, at least called as transitions. What do we mean by transition? The literal meaning of transition is that going from one style to another style, right? That's what transition is for some time. Like, for example, you see transitions in those, reels and all those things, right? Going from one style to another style is called a transition. And that's what we have to understand here as well. So let me simply go here and let's simply create a file with the name of transition.html. And in this transition.html, I will simply try to make you understand what transitions properties are. So let me open this and let's create a simple component here, and let's try to understand what we actually mean by transition and how transition can be implemented on anything here. Okay. So let's suppose I will start with a very simple thing called as div whose ID is going to be main. And in this div, let's not create any content as of now, but let me implement some style. So let's implement some style. And for that, I will simply target this div whose ID is main. And I will simply make its width over here. Width is equals to 150 pixel like this. Then height over here is going to be equals to 150 pixel like this. And then finally, I'm simply going to have a background color. And let's put background color is something below or below violet. Done. So let's go live with this and let's try to understand how it goes. So you can clearly see this is what my div is. Now, what does transition mean? Transition means that there is already a style implemented on my element. And due to some action that I perform, there's a change in the style of my element. That's what transitions mean. Now, transition does not mean that it's going to be there for like immediate time. No, the time that I will define, I can tell it that display this transition for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, after this delay, so on and so forth. And what should be the speed curve of this transition? In order to implement transition, we simply have to use a property called as transition like this. Okay. And it consists of two properties, transition property and transition time. So let's suppose I will simply tell it, please implement a transition related to this element whose ID is main with a property width. For how many time? For 4 seconds. Okay. So remember, when we write transition, it is collection of combination of two properties. I can write them separately as well, but I think you can understand this. Number one is transition property. Number two is transition time. After that, I have told it that with respect to our main element, there is going to be a transition, and the property that is going to support that transition is width, and this is the time. Now, how do we implement the transition? So I will simply go implement a pseudo class on it. Let's suppose a pseudo class that I'm going to talk about is hover. Now, when I simply go over here, I will simply tell at that point of time, please make the width as 300 pixels. Do you see any change in the output? Of course not. I'm not able to see any change in the output, but see the transition. So now, when I even let me do one thing, let me remove this transition for a second. Let's talk about without transition. So if I go over it, it immediately makes the width over there 300 pixel. Do you see that? Because that's what the pseudo class hover does. When I hover on it, make the width of the element whose ID is main 300 pixel, right? But now when I get this transition property simply here, and now when I hover on it, the same change is not abruptly instantly, but it actually takes a time. So it transits through the time. The change that happened inside my property, which I mentioned, it's not abruptly instantly, but it takes some time over there. I hope that makes sense. This is what we mean by transition. If I remove this transition, see the difference. When I hover on it, it immediately goes to 300 pixel. But when I have transition, the time that I have mentioned, it will take that much time from go to this point to that transition style that I have. So when I hover on it, it actually transits. This is what transition means. In a similar way, I can simply go here. I can write one other property. It's not necessary that transition is going to be related to only one property. I can tell it implement transition on my height as well. For how many seconds? Let's suppose 3 seconds. Not necessary as well. I will implement same time. So now I will simply go and implement my height. So height is equals, let's suppose 250 pixel. Now, if this transition property is not implemented, when you hover on it, it immediately goes to width 300, height 250 pixel. But now, once I get back my transition, I am telling it whenever there is a transition in width, make the transition, make the change, and tell width to take 4 seconds to implement that transition. Whenever there's a change in height, tell my web application to take 3 seconds in that transition. So if I hover on it, you can clearly understand the transition part here. Am I clear what transition means? Why we need transition? When we want a change, the change should not be abruptly, but the change should take some transit time. I hope that makes sense. Is that clear, guys? Very good. Now, moving forward, there are some properties that we need to learn related to transitions. Okay, what is the first property? The first property is called a transition delay. Now, when we talk about transition delay, let's suppose I will give a transition delay 2 seconds. It simply means when the change will happen, in order to implement the transition, take 2 seconds break. So when I even hover on it, nothing happens. But after 2 seconds, transition will happen. So this is what we mean by transition. And also remember one thing, it's not necessary that you will just target width and height, whatever property you need to write. So you want to implement a transition background color. So background color for how many seconds? Only 1 second. So in that case, go over here, make the change in background color. Make the change in background color. Let's suppose it is red now. So now when I hover on after 2 seconds, transition will happen in width, height, as well as background color. So transitions are not just bound to few properties. Transition is bound to every property, every single property that you can talk about. Just to go mention the property and tell it. Then whenever there's a change inside this property, this is how much time this property should take, and it will take that. That's what we mean by transition over here. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear, guys? I think I should be clear, right? I should be clear. Moving forward, now there's one another very important property called as transition timing function, and asked in the interviews as well. What do we mean by transition timing function? Okay, let's try to understand that what transition timing function means. As of now, it has a lot of values. We will simply talk about our what is this called normal. Okay, although we don't have normal, we have what is this called value of it is phase in. What is the value? Transition timing function. Let me see. I don't remember the values. So it should be cubic b z. Okay, this e is in. Sorry. So by default, it's e is in. But let's understand what are the other values and what does transition timing function actually mean. That's the very important thing. If you look at the transition, let me implement only one property here. Okay. Let's suppose I will simply go make only one property, which is width, and let's try to understand transition timing function with respect to this. And let me remove the delay as of now. And let's understand what transition timing function means. As of now, when you hover on it, it will take some time, and you can clearly understand transition happens. But the speed curve of the transition, if we want to control the speed curve of transition, the property that we actually talk about is transition. Okay, do you understand what I'm trying to say? The speed curve of your transition. What should be the speed curve? In that particular case, we can use a property called a transition timing function. As of now, look at what's happening. Please observe it. When I hover on it, it starts slowly, then it takes up speed. Do you observe that? Let me try to make it 8 seconds to properly observe it. Let's suppose. So let me make it 8 seconds. So when I hover, it starts very slowly, and then gradually it takes up the speed. So the speed curve that I have when this transition happens if you want to control that, the property that we call is transition timing function. So let me simply go implement transition timing function. The most and the wonderful value that you actually implement in most cases called a linear. So linear means throughout the speed curve should be seen. It should not be slow start and then gradually take up the speed. It should not be speed fast, slow start, speed fast, then end slowly. It should not be that. Throughout it is same, and you can clearly understand and observe that throughout now the speed curve of this transition is same. So if anyone asks you what does transition timing function do, it simply controls the timing speed curve of my transition that's happening. Now, in a similar way, there are some other values. So, number one is ease in. What does ease in actually mean? If you look at it, you can clearly see very slow start, and then later on it gradually takes up the speed. So, slow start, ease in means start slowly. Ease in means start slowly and take care after that. I don't care about after, but start slowly. There's one another value that we have called as out, ease out. Ease out means slow end. So when I start this, you can see it is speed is good, but at the end, if you observe it, now speed is gradually slowing over there. So that's what ease out means. So ease in means slow start, then take the speed. Ease out means speed good, and then gradually stop it. In a similar way, we have ease in and then ease in out like this. Ease in out means slow start, slow end, and in between gradually increase the speed. So whenever, let me try to rephrase it. Whenever we try to control this transition curve, the speed, how the speed curve of my transition should be implemented in that particular case, in that particular time, we use a property called as transition timing function. Is that clear? Transition, now Sumit is asking transition for pseudo elements, such as the first letter grow gradually of a paragraph when it appears. Let's try to see whether we can implement our transition on that or not. There's nothing in testing. So I will simply go here and let me create a p. So I will create a p tag with a lorem 100 text. So I have a text like this. Very good. Now after this, I will go here and I will implement my style on my p tag. Okay. Now on this p tag, we will implement, let's suppose color is equals to not white. Of course, it won't be visible, but I will implement color below. So now it's below. Very good. After that, I want to implement transition on it, right? Now when we say transition, so I will simply go implement a transition. Let's suppose transition that I want to implement is in font size. Okay. And font size for 3 seconds, right? Now when I go over here, now, how can I make a change inside font size? Maybe with a pseudo element. So let me implement and I will simply say first letter over there. So whenever I go to first letter, I will simply go and implement its font size and let me make font size is equals to 60 pixel. Will it be implemented? That's something that we need to understand. So P first letter, of course not. So you don't see any transition for 3 seconds in font size because it's quite obvious that pseudo elements do not target a change over there. It simply implements it abruptly. What's the difference between pseudo class and pseudo element? Pseudo class waits for an action to happen. Pseudo element directly happens on the element itself. Do you understand the difference? Hover. When I take my cursor on an element, then hover will be triggered. But if I talk about first letter, it's always first letter. Even when the application starts, it will be implemented. So there's no transition inside this. But yes, if I go and tell it in a similar way, implement, let's suppose hover on it, then in that case, the transition that we can clearly see is actually implemented. Do you see a transition? Yes, there's a transition now. When I hover on it, there's a transition because this transition is waiting for my action to happen. That's the difference. What other transitions? Why are other? Do I always have to implement transition on hover? No, of course not. Let's suppose I will simply go here. I will simply create a button. Okay. And in this button, it simply says click me. Whatever it does, we are not concerned about that. So I have a button that says click me and let me add a break here. So now on this button that I have, I want to implement a transition. Now the transition should happen when I click on it. When I click on it, not hover. Hover is if I as of now, if I go here, let me implement button, and to this button I will simply go and implement some style. Let's suppose the style is background color is, let's suppose it is aqua, and you can clearly see that is getting implemented here on my button. But on the other hand, I want to implement transition on it. So let's go transition, and on transition I will implement the transition should be implemented on background color. Okay, so let me write background color, and it should be implemented for 2 seconds. Now the first and most used transition way is hover over there. So I will go right hover like this, like this. And in this case, I will implement the background color as, let's suppose it is always aqua, I will make it blue. So now when I hover on it, there is a transition in this. You can clearly see transition is happening, and that is blue. It's not abruptly making it blue, right? But I don't want hover. There's one other pseudo class which we can implement called as focus. Now, what does focus mean? Look at this. When I click on it, focus means when you click, keep the cursor on it. Not just one click, but keep the cursor on it. That means focus. So at that point of time, let me try to increase the padding as well. So padding is equals to 30 pixel. So let's go here and let me implement padding property as well. So comma padding, right? And padding should be implemented for 3 seconds. So now when I click on it, as soon as I click on it, focus is actually receiving the pseudo transition as well. So transitions are not just related to hover; it is related to the property that you are trying to implement. I hope that makes sense. Now, when I one time click on it, you can even see it's receiving focus. Focus means when you click on it, even if you go inside input field, it's also focus. When you click on a button, it receives focus. My style is implemented. I hope transitions are completely clear. Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? Yes or no? Do we understand our transitions properly? Everyone, give me a confirmation. Can we also implement transition for scrolling? See, for scrolling purposes, you need to see whether there is a pseudo class related to scroll or not. If there is, then in that case, you can implement. Because scroll is an action that user performs. You need to see. I'm not sure about any kind of pseudo class, but if there is, Ashu, go and look at on the internet. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, with this, we have completed our one another very important topic called as transitions. Okay, there's one very important topic called as animations. What do we mean by animations? Something very important. And I guess animations play a very important role inside our web development because you would want to implement animations. So let's understand what animations are. There are a lot of properties that we have in it. So please make sure that you stay up till end and let's understand animations properly. So let me rename it and let me implement dot in between so we can create a HTML file out of it. And let me go live with this animations file. So let me open it, go live. So we have our animations like this. Now let's understand what animations mean. The button or checkbox to grow when click it and then back to normal. When you click it again is deselected. What does that mean? The button or checkbox to grow when click it and then back to normal. When click it again or deselected. So what is the question? I'm not able to understand that. So I think it is related to this transition, right? So when I click on this, it grows, right? So what exactly are we looking here for? So are you saying how it goes to normal? Is that what your question is, Sumit? So when I click on it, it receives. Okay, no. When we not click on it again, it will not go normal. But what does focus mean? That is one thing that we need to understand here, Sumit. Focus means when you click on it, it simply receives focus, and this pseudo class will be implemented. But if we have to send this button back to its normal position, which means we have to somehow remove the focus from it, which means click anywhere on your web page and it will remove focus on it and it goes back to normal. So simply remove focus from it. When you click on it, it receives focus. When you click somewhere else, it receives blur there. The focus is removed from the button, it will go to normal. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let me go back to animation and let me go live. I hope that answers your question. Right? Perfect. Now let's go over here and let's try to understand what we mean by animations. If you have any further questions, please put in the chat, Sumit. I will answer properly. Don't worry about it. Now let's try to understand. I want to create an animation here. And what animation, by animation, what do I actually mean? Animation simply mean few seconds back we understood transitions, and transitions was from one style to another style, how we can go smoothly, the smooth transition of a style from one point to another point over a duration of time. But on the other hand, if I talk about animations, what do we mean by animation? Animation is something very important. The time frame that I have, let's suppose 8 seconds. Animation says the 8-second time that you have, let me know, tell me what I will do in first 2 seconds, tell me what I will do in next 2 seconds, tell me what I will do in next 2 seconds. So the time frame that I want to break that into multiple intervals, and in each individual interval I want to implement a different style. So style should be changing continuously over the period of time. That's what we mean by animation. The keyframes that I have, those keyframes are continuously changing over a period of a given period of time. In that particular case, we call it as animations. I hope that makes sense. I hope you have understood the literal meaning of what animations are. As of now, let me implement some style over here. Let's try to understand what we mean by animation. So style over there is equals to, in this div, I will simply go give it a width. Let's suppose width is equals 200 pixel, although let's make it a little bit low to 130 pixel. I will go make height as 130 pixel like this. And then finally, I will give it a background color as, let's suppose the background color is, let's suppose blue. So this is my initial div that I have. Okay. Now, in order to implement a proper animation, what's the first property that we write? The first property that we have to do is we have to give an identifier. We have to give a name to the animation that we are trying to build. And in order to give the animation name to a property that we are trying to build, to an element that we are trying to build, we have to use a property called as animation name. So we will simply go here and I will use a property called as animation name. Okay. Now animation name can be anything. Let's suppose we will simply write animate. Animate. This is the name. You can name it whatever you want. I can also name it Adfar as well. It's completely up to you. Whatever name you want to give, you can give it. So animation name is animate. Very good. Then the second and most important thing, these two properties are mandatory. Like if you do not use these two properties, your animation will not be implemented. Doesn't matter what you do. Number one is what is the name of the animation so that you can target it and make the animation work. Second thing is for how long, the duration of the animation, for how long you want this animation to be implemented. So for that, we have one another very important property called as animation duration. So let's suppose animation duration is 8 seconds. So what is it that we have? What is it that we have? We simply have our animation and we simply want this animation to be implemented. The name of that is animate and I want it to be implemented on 8 seconds. Now, what is the essence of animation? The animation allows us to gradually change from one style to another style. And not just from one style to another style, only two properties. No, we can change as many as CSS properties we want, as that to as many times as we want. So we have to understand that for this 8 seconds duration, do we want to change the background color 100 times? Yes, we can do that as well. For this 10 minutes, do we want to change the background color 1,000 times? Yes, we can do that. So to change the properties from one to another or any property from one to another, that 200 times, 200 times doesn't matter. It completely depends on you. But how can we tell it to make the animation work? For that, we use a rule. There's one very important rule animation that's called @keyframe rule. There's one very important rule that's called @keyframes rule. With help of this @keyframes rule, we must connect my animation name with that keyframe. And if we are able to do that, our animation will work. So how do we do that? We simply go here, we simply add the rate of keyframes. Then we write our animation name. And what is the animation name? In this case, it's animate. And then over here, once we write this, and over here we tell it that for the first second, what you will do, for the second time, what you will do, for the third second, what you will do, and so on and so forth. For the minute second, what you will do. So this in the add rate keyframe rule, since we have connected with the animation called as animate, it will be means this added keyframe will be implemented on all the animations, on all the elements, while the animation name is animate. That's the catch here. Now we can implement different syntax here. For example, the first syntax is we can implement from. So I will simply write from my background color. The initially it is blue, so let me make it blue initially, and then from to. So this is one way of writing animations. So in this case, please go write background color to red. Now see, as soon as my website has refreshed itself, animation instantly kicks off. You can see, as soon as I refresh my page, in terms of animations, we were supposed to perform an operation, hover, focus. But in this case, when as soon as my page refreshes, animations will kick in. So I am telling it at the 0% time of the interval that I have mentioned, start from the blue and eventually go to red. So for this 8 seconds, let me make it very fast. Let's say make 3 seconds only. So now we can clearly see it goes immediately to red and then comes back to blue immediately. But we don't use this kind of syntax very often. Why? Because this will allow you only two types of syntaxes. At zeroth time, what it should do, and at the last 100% of time, what it should do. But there's a better way of implementing our animations. What is that? The better way of writing animation is we will simply add 0%. Add 0%. Please implement the background color as red. Done. Then add, let's suppose, 10%. What does 10% of 8 second mean? Let's make it a 10-second time. So 0% means 0 second. 10% means at 1 second. Go over there, implement background color as, let's suppose, aqua. Done. And then finally, I will go 20%. In a similar way, I will simply go make what the background color at what. So let's make background color as, let's say, aquamarine. And then finally at 30%. So I will simply go make 30% as background color. In this case, background color, make it black. And in a similar way, let's suppose at 60%. Go over here and implement the background color. So let's make background color as, let's suppose it's going to be brown. And finally at 80%, let's suppose. So at 80%, do one thing, go over here, implement a background color and make background color as, let's suppose it's going to be cadmium blue. And finally at 100% of 10 seconds, go over there, implement background color as, let's suppose it's going to be blue violet. So you can clearly see, first it starts with red, then it goes to aqua, then aquamarine, black, brown, cadmium blue, and then finally it goes to blue violet, and then it will go back to whatever it is. So this is what actually we mean by animations. Over a period of time, we gradually change one style from one style to another style. We gradually do that. I hope that makes sense. Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? Do we understand what I'm trying to say? What actually animations mean? This is not how we will implement animation. This is a simple property. This is a simple example of it to make you understand what animations mean. There are two very important properties. Now, see, if I remove this property, let me remove this property, animation time. Do you see any animation getting implemented in the output? Of course not, because it does not know at this point of time what is 0%, what is 10%, what is the time that I'm trying to mention. So that's why this animation name as well as animation duration is very mandatory. If you do not write these two properties, your animation will not work, right? So can anyone tell me over here, this particular background color, this background color will be exactly implemented after how many seconds when my page refreshes itself? After how many seconds? This background color will be black here. Okay. Very good. Very good. So it is 3 seconds, right? So 30% of 10 seconds is 3 seconds. Now, I 5 seconds back told you that it's not necessary that I will just change a property. There's one very important thing that you need to remember in transitions, which is you want to implement a transition, you have to write that property here. If you do not write that property name, transition will not be implemented. But over here, you can write any property. Let's suppose I want add 0%. Apart from background color, I want it to implement a padding. Padding of what? 20 pixel at 0%. So you can clearly see padding is getting implemented, right? Maybe over here, I also want padding. So when this happens, at that point of time, make padding as 40 pixel. Even that will also work as well at 30 pixel. You can clearly see. So in my animation, whatever properties at what time you want to implement, you can implement that. But let's make it very good. So I will simply go here. Let me make it not 10%, but let's divide into 4 equal intervals. So 25%. And let me remove this padding as well. Now over here, I want to implement another as 50%. For the 50%, I will simply go make background color as, let's suppose background color as coral, whatever it is, right? And then finally over here, I will simply go define one other interval called as 75%. 75% background color over here is, let's suppose it's going to be let's say crimson, okay. And then finally at 100%, it's simply going to be background color as, and this background color is going to be, let's suppose whatever it is, okay, dark olive green. So you can see my animation is properly working for 10 seconds. Let's make it a little bit shorter time. Let's put 6 seconds. So once I do that, you can clearly see red, aqua, coral, crimson, dark olive green, and finally it goes back to below that we have. So we have this animation. But now I want to understand animations in a different way. When you talk about animations, what is the picture that comes up in your mind? You simply get a simple picture in your mind, that is, it is navigating, not just changing their visual design there, not just changing the background color or color of any text, but also it simply drags itself maybe from one point to another point. So it simply moves itself as well. Have you seen such kind of animations in your websites? There's a header, and to that element, this one element, it goes back, forward, back, forward, back, forward continuously. You might have seen such websites on the internet. So how can we implement such animations inside our website? That's something that we need to understand. But even before I want to implement that with help of animation, I want to understand from your side one very important question. I want to change the position of this particular div from here to here. This is what I want. At this point of time, the animation is here, starting from here to here. Sorry, not animation, but div. Now I want to change its position and put the element here. So how can I do that? That's what my question is. We have understood this topic back few days back. So how can we change the position of this element? What is the property that I use in that case? Anyone? Anyone? Very good, Ashu. We use a property called as position on that element. So I can simply go here, and then I can simply implement a property called as position relative. Then I can simply tell it, do one thing, from top, move it 100 pixel, maybe, or 200 pixel, whatever, right? It got moved. Then over here, from left over here, I can simply implement move it 100 pixel as well. And you can clearly see it change its position, right? No, not border, not margin. I will implement position relative. That's it. Because my question was, how can we change a position of an element, not the layout of an element? Position. Always listen to the question. So top 100 pixel, left 100 pixel. Right? We got it. But we don't want it to be implemented directly on the element. We want this top and left implemented via animation. So when the 0% is happening at that point of time, since this element already has position relative, I will tell it make the left 0, make the top 0. Done. Finally, after that, once my time is 25%, at that point of time, make the left as 200 pixel, okay, and then make the top over there as 0 pixel. Once my time is 50%, at that point of time, make the left as 200 pixel and keep the top as 200 pixel. Done. And then finally over there, when my element is at 75, make the left as, what we want to do now is from here, I want it to move here. So left is 0, and then my top is still what, 200 pixel. And then finally over there, my left over here is 0, and then my top is 0. So now you can clearly understand I have told it how to move in a square shape as well, with help of a position property. So my agenda actually that I'm trying to make you understand it, that we can do any kind of thing that you can think of with respect to my element over there, whatever you can think of. The only thing is whether that property is implemented or not. Now I have a question, simple question that I want to ask here, and who will answer me this? If I remove this position relative property here, will these left and all these tops that I have implemented on 0%, 10%, 20%, whatever the time is, will they be implemented? Will they work? Does they make sense if I remove position relative from the div element? Does that make any sense? Yes or no? What do you think about that? Right? Of course, no. Because top, left, right, bottom only makes sense if there's a position property, whether it is relative, whether it's absolute, whether it's fixed, whether it is sticky. If none of those four values are used, you cannot use top left. So if I remove this over here, Control X, and my animation is starting, you can see color is changing, but they are not changing the position over there. So to implement such kind of things, we must implement our position property properly as well. So this is what we mean by animation. Do you want to implement any other property? Of course you can. So I can simply tell it, please transform. Transform the element, change it, rotate it over there in terms of X. Maybe I want to change it with respect to 120 degree. So I can simply go 120 degree or 120 M. So again, let me say 120 degree. Right? And then let me say control, although rotate X will not work. I think we have not discussed transform property, right? Have we discussed transform property? Have we discussed transform property, guys? I don't think so. So transform property we have discussed properly. There are four ways. Instead of rotate X, let me do one thing. Let me teach you one of the very basic property here. That's called scale. Okay. So scale to what? Let's suppose 1.5. In a similar way, I will simply go here and let me try to implement, instead of rotate, I will simply say scale, let's suppose 0.54. Then finally over there, I will simply go and implement, instead of this rotate X property, I will simply go and tell it, please do one thing, scale it to what? My 0.9 over there, or 8. 0.8. There's one extra bracket, I guess, right? And in a similar way, I will implement over here as well. Now you can see my web application is even changing the scale of an element as well. I will come to what scale means, what rotate means, what skew means, all those things in transform. I will come back to that, because maybe I will send a video in WhatsApp group, because I've already uploaded a video related to all these four properties. Over there you have to understand properly how we can rotate an element, what's transform property, how we can scale property, how we can skew with respect to X, with respect to Y. So all those things we have to understand properly. Those are advanced CSS properties. Okay. So there are bunch of properties which I'm not going to cover in this course, but I have covered them in our YouTube video, in our HTML CSS playlist there. I will give you a complete list of what you need to watch there to make your concepts very clear with respect to HTML CSS. Now, at this point of time, you can understand that we have understood animations, but we have not completed our animations. There are a lot of other properties which we have to understand, which we have to complete with respect to our animations. So let me do one thing. Let me share the attendance form. Please make sure that you will submit the attendance properly, and make sure to add a valuable feedback as well. Guys, right now there's 37 students, and I'm pretty much sure they are here because they know in the last 10 minutes we do the attendance part, right? So they are here to mark the attendance. That's not how things will work. I know I have a team member here, I have an intern here who looks always at the number of participants, who is active, who is not, and those members will be always given preference. Remember that. Okay. So suppose there's a button in a web page. When I click on the button, I want its properties to change, and then change again when I click on it again. So in that case, simply what you can do is, you can maybe, first of all, on a button you can add only one click event. Okay, simple as that. We will use JavaScript for that. I will simply tell, when I click on it, in that case do this. but it will only do one very important point of thing. You can implement animations on it, and in that case, for over a period of time, it will change the property. But one click will do only one thing. Yes, you can add other events to it, but we have not discussed that. That is in my JavaScript, Sumit, right? On click events. If you remember that, if you know that already. So we will discuss that. We will try to understand how we can do this as well, but in JavaScript. Because clicking is not taken care of as of now. Have we taken care of that? No. We don't know what we should do when we click on it. That will be taken care by JavaScript itself. Okay. Sir, what about the assignments? Now you will get the assignments. As I said, this week I was very busy, very much busy. I was not able to find time to create and design assignments for all of you. But definitely now I am free kind of. And on Monday or Tuesday, I will launch 2, 3 assignments instantly on HTML CSS, which you have to submit. And then in this week itself, I am going to evaluate previous all assignments and I will share the marks with all of you. Okay, sir, can it happen on checkboxes? Like in checkboxes, see, you need to understand what actually our requirement is. If our requirement is that when I click on it, something should happen, it will always be taken care by JavaScript. Like if I do this, perform that action, that's JavaScript. Sumit. If I perform this, do that, that's JavaScript. How my application will behave to the actions that I perform, that's JavaScript. Okay, perfect. Now, guys, give me a feedback in the chat section for today's class. We have not completed animations. In our tomorrow's class, we will discuss animation and responsive web design. So please put a feedback. And also, I have one shikayat, one thing that I want to share. I know there are good amount of students, like these 30 students are very active in the class and they are dedicated as well. But I'm not seeing you guys giving me the response that I require after this video is finished in the comment section. There are 5 comments on the last video, right? So I would really appreciate if you would comment over there, put your valuable feedback, let people know about this course, tag me on LinkedIn, put a comment over there and let people know we are in this course, right? So please do that. Please put a valuable feedback, valuable comment once this video is done. But you guys are not doing that. There are only 4 students who continuously put comments. The rest of you do not. You guys might be thinking that what are we here for? We are here for our own knowledge. We will take that and we will leave. No, you have to give me something in return as well, right? So I request to you, please and please, please and please help me in that. Put a valuable feedback. Let people know. Tag me. I have not even received a single tag yet on LinkedIn. Tag me on LinkedIn and let people know. Please and please do that. Okay. So please do that. And in our next video, that is tomorrow in our next class, we will do that. Is that a promise, guys? You will do that now? All these 30 dedicated students. Is that a promise that you will do it now? You will all will put a proper valuable feedback in the comment section. You will tag me on a LinkedIn with the link of YouTube channel, and then you will let people know that we are in this course. Perfect, Shumam. Great. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. And let's meet in our tomorrow's class with much more discussions that we have to do on animations. And then we will discuss responsive web design and we will complete our HTML CSS. From next week, we will start our JavaScript as well. So thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Please make sure you put a valuable feedback, like this video, and thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye. See you. Bye. I'm going to paste the addends link again. Make sure you do the addends. So this is the addends link that I have pasted in the chat section, right? You guys might have seen it now. Tomorrow's class will be 6 to 8 or any time that you like. We will create a poll around that sadi. Okay? Perfect. I will be here for next 1 minute. Please mark your attendance and see you in the next class. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Please practice as much as you can. Thank you so much. Bye. And also, one another request: please put your questions in WhatsApp group. I don't feel that WhatsApp group is active. Put your questions there. Put your queries there. Let people know what you have done. See you guys. Bye.